Cashless Society, written by Andrew Lee, editor of Levra. Issue 15th May 2023. Banks and bankers do not always get a good press. Perhaps it has something to do with the 2008 financial crash. A lost decade of austerity followed the crash, the effect of which we are seeing now. After 10 years of pay freezes and real terms wages cuts, the wave of strikes and pay demands of disaffected working people is almost inevitable. Yet those who actually caused the crisis, the banks and the bankers behind the crash in Britain, were never held accountable. Certainly, no one went to jail for raining down financial disaster on our country. Remember, the government had to effectively nationalize both Lloyds and NatWest to stop the banks from collapsing. We mention this not through any inherent anti-bank and banking stance, but to make the point that as a society, for want of a better way of expressing it, the banking system owes us. If you like, they should be looking to put back into society as reinstitution for what they have taken away. If this is a valid point of view, it is certainly not one that banks, the banking system, and the bankers have embraced. If anything, they appear to be heading in the opposite direction. As our sister news organization, Somerset Confidential, reported recently, since the crash of 2008, the high street banking groups have slowly been shutting down their branch networks. It is partly in response to the increased use of internet banking. That is their repeated claim. It was certainly true during the pandemic. What they are less concerned to emphasize is that is also another way of making more money. Shutting branches means property can be sold off, staff let go, and if customer service is less personal and less convenient for customers, the banks can shrug that off as their bottom line grows. And no doubt, their bonuses too. The fact is that today there are fewer than 30 banks branches, as opposed to building societies, left in the whole of Somerset Council area. That includes branches of Barclays, HSBC, NatWest, Halifax, Lloyds, and Santander. Towns such as Wincanton, Castle Carey, Langport, and Glastonbury have no bank branches at all. The question we ask is this: has bank branch use declined because of internet banking? Or has internet banking increased because there are so few bank branches left and that it is becoming even more inconvenient to use them? Walk into a bank, and the first thing you will be told is, "Did you know you could have done this online?" Banks often contact customers, remind them that they do not need to go into their branch to do business banking. It may well be that customers prefer to use online banking, but it is at least in part because banks have been trying to persuade us to abandon face to face banking in their branches. It is, after all, in the interest of banks to make using branches inconvenient. The benefit is not just that it is cheaper to run banks without branches. It also makes accessing cash and using cash in transaction much harder too. Cash decline. During COVID, the Bank of England noted that cash use declined rapidly. However, a report for the Bank of England published in December 2021 revealed some important findings. Over 5 million adults rely on cash in their day-to-day lives, and cash remains the preferred payment method for 21% of the population. Cash is vital for the 1.2 million people who have limited access to banking services and can be an essential budgeting tool for the 3.8 million in financial difficulty. Importantly, cash also plays a vital contingency role for everyone when other forms of payment are unavailable or interrupted. Why is it in the interest of banks to push us away from using cash? Their answer is again the simple fact that banks make more money out of us when we use cards than when we use cash. There is no doubt that the use of debit and credit cards has grown too. Even market traders now routinely use machines to take money from customers. Traders who take cash will be charged for putting their cash takings into their bank, but they can hold back cash and use it to pay for things they need for their business. The next day stock, for instance. Charges for banking cash is still wrong at around 1%. So, if banks were available in market towns and cash was used regularly, the local economy would have less taken out of it. If a trader takes a debit or credit card, they may be charged for using the machine they need to process the payment made by their customers. But more importantly, may be charged anything from 3 to 5% of every card transaction. If having taken money in by card, you then use a company credit card to make purchases, you will be paying anything up to 30% on the balance. Making more and more. Put simply, the banks are actually making more money by getting us to use cards instead of cash. It is in their interest to push us away from cash and push us away from branch banking. Yet, As we have seen above, more than 20% of the population depend on using cash, and it those at the poorer end of the spectrum that need cash the most. And there are whole industries where cash has a significant advantage. Take hospitality. If you get a good service in a bar or restaurant and you pay by card, can you be sure that the person who served you will get the tip rather than the business owner? The government is definitely not sure. So much so that it is passing legislation this month to intervene. It believes that up to £200 million in tips for staff is being pocketed instead by employers. Yet, the most obvious and easy way to tip staff is to pay the bill without service by card and leave a tip in cash. Then you won't need government intervention to make sure employees get what is rightly theirs. It is inevitable that everything you have just read on can sound a bit Luddite. That would be to miss the point. There's nothing wrong with technology for those who find it easy to use. But the whole point of money is that there needs to be choice. To simply disenfranchise 21% of the population is not acceptable. Yet, as banks close down their branch networks, they are closing down access to cash, not just in branch, but via cash machines. Giving back less and less. If our banks make more money out of us, if we move away from cash, what is in it for us? What do we get as a dividend for dancing to the high street bank's tune? There is little doubt that retail banking is very profitable with or without bank branches. Perhaps if banks are making more money out of us, they should pay a social dividend. Perhaps in the form of keeping branches open in local communities, even when it costs them a little more to do so. The end.